You open your wardrobe on a Tuesday morning, and there it is, the gym bag. Still packed from 3 weeks ago, when you told yourself this time would be different. The water bottle inside has gone stale. The shoes haven't touched pavement. You pick it up, you put it back down. Not because you don't want to be healthier. You do, deeply, genuinely. Not because you don't know what to do. Walk, run, lift something. Repeat. The knowledge isn't the problem. The problem is this. Somewhere between the version of you that wants to be fit and the version of you that actually moves, there is a gap so wide it feels like a canyon. And standing at the edge of that canyon, looking across, you do what most of us do. You calculate the distance, and you decide it's too far. So you close the wardrobe. You make coffee. You tell yourself you'll start on Monday, because Monday is a clean slate. Monday has symbolic weight. Monday feels like a real beginning. And somewhere in the back of your mind, you're lying to yourself, but it's a comfortable lie. It asks nothing of you today. Here's what that Tuesday morning actually sounds like inside your head. I haven't worked out in months. Maybe years. Where do I even start? I'll embarrass myself. I'll look ridiculous, huffing and puffing after 5 minutes while everyone around me looks like they've been training since birth. And honestly, I'm so far gone, what's even the point of one workout? It won't make a difference. I need to overhaul everything. Diet, sleep, stress, I can't just go for a walk, that's not enough. I need a plan. A real plan. And I don't have time to build a real plan today, so... And just like that, inaction becomes logical, reasonable, even. The mind constructs an entire architecture of justification, and you inhabit it like it's home. This video is about what's actually happening when you do that. And more importantly, what it costs you. What's going on in that moment by the wardrobe isn't laziness. It's something more specific than that, and understanding it matters. Your brain is not being lazy, it's being efficient. It's doing exactly what it was designed to do, protect you from pain, conserve energy, and avoid situations where you might fail publicly. The problem is that your brain evolved for a world where those instincts kept you alive. In the modern world, those same instincts are quietly keeping you small. Psychologists have a name for the pattern running that internal monologue. They call it all-or-nothing thinking. It's a cognitive distortion, a systematic error in reasoning, where the mind refuses to acknowledge the middle ground. You either do the full program or you do nothing. You either have the perfect diet or you eat whatever you want. You either are a fit person or you are not. All-or-nothing thinking is seductive because it feels like high standards. It disguises itself as ambition. But underneath that mask, it's something else entirely. It's a trap. Because perfection is always one condition away from possible, the all-or-nothing thinker is permanently excused from beginning. There's always a reason why now isn't quite right. The plan isn't complete, the time isn't optimal. The starting point is too embarrassing. Your brain is trying to protect you from the discomfort of imperfect action. What it doesn't tell you is that imperfect action is the only kind of action that has ever moved anything forward. There's something else running underneath this too. Psychologists call it social comparison theory, first articulated by Leon Festinger in the 1950s. We evaluate ourselves not against an objective standard, but against other people. And here's where it gets dangerous. When you're out of shape and you walk into a gym, your brain doesn't compare you to who you were 6 months ago. It compares you to the person next to you who's been doing this for years. That comparison is so unfavorable, so immediately demoralizing, that your nervous system registers it as a threat. Not a metaphorical threat, an actual physiological stress response. And then there's what behavioral scientists call the present bias. Your brain assigns dramatically more weight to discomfort right now than to benefit in the future. The embarrassment of that first workout is vivid and immediate. The health consequences of not starting, the creeping fatigue, shortened life expectancy, the slow erosion of confidence, those feel abstract, distant, deniable. So your brain does the math. Immediate pain versus future gain. It chooses avoidance every time. Unless you understand what it's doing and choose differently. None of this makes you weak. It makes you human. The question is whether understanding the mechanism is enough to change your relationship to it. So what actually happens when you keep putting it off? Not immediately. Immediately, not much happens. You make the coffee, you have a reasonably comfortable Tuesday, and the gym bag stays in the wardrobe. That's Tuesday. But here's how it compounds. Every day you don't move, your body adapts to stillness. Muscle tissue doesn't just pause, it atrophies. Cardiovascular capacity doesn't hold steady, it declines. The physiological gap between where you are and where you want to be doesn't stay the same while you're waiting for the right moment. It quietly grows. Which means that every Monday you skip, the canyon you calculated as too wide actually gets wider. The decision you're avoiding becomes harder to make, not easier. But the physical cost is almost the lesser cost. What you're also missing is this. Research suggests that even a single session of moderate movement can begin to shift brain chemistry in your favor. Studies on exercise and neurological function point to increases in brain-derived neurotrophic factor, a protein involved in the growth of new neural connections. Following bouts of physical activity, your mood can lift. Cognitive function can improve. Stress response can regulate. These aren't distant rewards waiting at the end of a 12-week program. They're potential returns available from day one that you are forfeiting today and tomorrow, and every day the bag stays packed. And the saddest part is not what you lose physically. It's what you lose about yourself. Every time you choose inaction over discomfort, you are sending yourself a message. You might not hear it consciously, but your nervous system receives it clearly. I am the kind of person who doesn't follow through. That's the message. And every repetition of that message, every Tuesday morning by the wardrobe, reinforces a self-concept that becomes increasingly hard to contradict. Identity is built through action. Specifically, through evidence. When you vote for an action, you accumulate evidence that you are not someone who does hard things. And once that evidence piles up, even beginning feels like an act of denial. Like you'd be lying to yourself about who you are. There is a version of you, not some fantasy version, not some unrealistic projection, just a version of you that moves a little, that walks on Tuesdays. That is slightly less tired, slightly less stiff, slightly more capable. That version is not some distant destination. It is one decision away. Every day you wait, you are choosing distance from that version. Not because you can't begin, but because the architecture of avoidance is so comfortable you keep choosing to live inside it. That is the cost. Not dramatic. Not cinematic. Just a slow, quiet drift away from the person you're capable of being. Consider where you're actually standing right now. The first step is not the smallest step. It is the hardest step. Not because it requires the most effort. It doesn't. A 10-minute walk requires almost nothing from your body. But it requires everything from your psychology. It requires you to tolerate imperfection, to confront comparison, to move against the grain of every avoidance habit you've built. And what changes the moment you take it is simple. The second step becomes possible. That's the whole mechanism. Not transformation. Not revolution. Just the unlocking of the next step. There's a concept in behavioral science called self-efficacy. Your belief in your capacity to execute a specific behavior. Psychologist Albert Bandura spent decades studying it. And what his research consistently showed was this. The most powerful source of self-efficacy is not encouragement, not visualization, not positive affirmation. It is mastery experience. Doing the thing, even imperfectly, and surviving it. That experience rewires your belief about what you're capable of. So when you take that first walk, not the perfect walk, not the impressive walk, just a walk, your brain files that as evidence. Evidence that you are someone who moved when it was uncomfortable. And that evidence, small as it seems, begins to contradict the story you've been telling yourself. Think about it this way. You are not trying to become an athlete today. You are trying to become someone who showed up today. Those are completely different goals, and one of them is actually achievable right now, in the body you're in, with the time you have. And about comparison, the reframe that matters most is this. The person at the gym who looks effortless has been accumulating their reps for years. What you're seeing is the product of thousands of uncomfortable beginnings. You are not behind them. You are simply at a different point in a process they also had to start. The comparison your brain reaches for is not a real comparison. It's apples to years of apples. James Clear uses a simple mathematical model to illustrate how small actions scale. If you improve by just 1% each day, the compounding effect over a year produces roughly 37 times your starting output. The numbers are a thought experiment, not a training schedule. But the principle they're pointing at is real, small, consistent action compounds in ways that feel invisible at first and then suddenly don't. The 10-minute walk matters, not primarily because of what it does to your body today, but because of what it does to the pattern you're building. The pattern is the point, not the performance. You don't need to be impressive, you need to be consistent. And consistency starts so small it feels almost insulting. That's the whole design, small enough to do, repeated enough to compound. That's the entire architecture of change. So here's what you do. Not this Monday. Not when the plan is ready. Not when the conditions are perfect. Today. In the body you have, in the time you have, with the energy level you have. You move for 10 minutes. That's it. 10 minutes. Outside if you can, around the block, down the street, through the park. If it's raining, in your living room. If you're exhausted, slowly. If you're embarrassed, in the dark. None of that changes the instruction. 10 minutes of movement, deliberately chosen over 10 minutes of stillness. When it's uncomfortable, and it will be uncomfortable, you don't stop. You don't wait for it to feel better before you decide to continue. You feel it and you move through it. Awkward and slow and imperfect and real. And when you're done, you don't celebrate with an hour of stillness and reward food. You notice something quieter than celebration. A small, private fact. You said you would, and you did. Write it down if you want to, or just carry it. Tomorrow, if you can, you do 11 minutes. What you're really doing when you step out that door is not training your cardiovascular system. Not meaningfully, not yet. You're training your decision-making. You're practicing the movement from knowing to doing. And every time you practice it, that movement gets fractionally easier. Not easy. Easier. There is a difference, and the difference is everything. The version of you that moves confidently, that feels strong, that has built something real in your body, that version didn't start from a place of readiness. They started from exactly where you are. Out of shape, a little embarrassed, unsure if it would matter. They moved anyway. You're out of shape? Move your body anyway.